We have been in constant communication with the Sheriff's Office for the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's our hope in the next 2 weeks that we're going to be able to get to the point at which we will actually have a specific number to work off of. So hopefully in about 2 weeks.
How's the communication been between you guys and the Sheriff's Office?
It's actually been pretty good. They're struggling with their numbers as are we. And the discussion has been positive. They've indicated that they were not in a position, certainly with the legislature being in session, to having specific proposals at the time in which we were crunching numbers a couple of weeks ago. So my last conversation with Chief Deputy Gauger was hopefully by the end of next week we'll have some basis for some real numbers to look to the future.
I think it's important to note that we renegotiated the contract last year, so we're very optimistic of doing the same thing this year.
Did it come to a surprise at all to the Sheriff's Office? Because you mentioned when the contract was first written that you guys would have to renegotiate the price. Did they forget, you think, or did it come as a surprise to them when?
Well, I know at that time, I was not serving on the commission at that time, but I know that the city manager at that time and the finance director at that time advised against the commission voting on the contract, that they said at that time it was not sustainable. And again, that was before the downturn in the economy, when we've since lost about $1 billion in property value.
Do you think it slipped through the cracks since then? I mean, is that why?
No, I mean, I know our city manager has worked very closely with the sheriff, I think, since you've come on board.
Yeah, my first conversation with Sheriff Bradshaw on this issue actually started in 2009, when we talked about the budget shortfall. And at that time, we requested a reduction. We weren't successful in 2009, but were in 2010. When we discussed the final number in 2010, it very much was predicated on the belief that we were going to have to reevaluate this again in 2011 and potentially 2012.
Can you keep Lake Worth safe? Can you keep Lake Worth safe if this contract isn't agreed upon? Is Lake Worth safe without PBSO deputies here?
The city of Lake Worth would certainly not reconstitute a police department if it did not feel that it could be properly staffed, resourced, and provide that level of protection to the community. So yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. And of course, that's what the study was done, to ensure that the resources would be known, that the cost evaluated and established prior to the decision being made.
And I think it's important to reiterate that public safety is the #1 responsibility of government. So we have made that commitment and continue to make that commitment. And I think the drop in crime shows that we are committed to continuing to work with the sheriff and serving our community.
Since you guys went to the Sheriff's Office, how's the response been from you and the community with their performance?
Oh, since we've gone to the sheriff?
Yeah.
Fabulous. They've exceeded our expectations. The sheriff has done a fantastic job, and it's unquestionable that we want them to stay.
Well, same thing from a staff perspective. I mean, I'm a Captain Silva fan as well. It's been outstanding. They have their first-class operation, and we want to do everything we can do to ensure that they continue to stay. And as Vice Mayor Mulvehill indicated, it's very much predicated on having a price that's affordable, achievable, and sustainable by the community, not just this year, but into the future.
And still under negotiation, but do you feel optimistic?
Absolutely.
What price are you shooting for the coming budget year?
The number we've always talked about is about $12 million.
And that's about 1.3 million below what the contract is now.
It's about 1.9 million below if one incorporates the 7% contractual right that they would have to incorporate a price.
What you're actually paying in this budget year is 13 points.
It's about a little more than $1 million less than what we're paying for the current.
And they too have felt optimistic about meeting us at that number. I mean, I recall talking to you, Susan, about that we've had good response from the Sheriff's Department in being able to meet us at that number. So
that's correct.
We just need to get to the table and negotiate the number.
Would that number have to continue to fall in the budget years in the future?
According to the budgets, it appears that we will need to look at this into the future. And Susan, if you want to elaborate on the graphs and the work that you've done and the forecasts.
Yeah, we'll have more specific, information tonight, but regarding the future, the ability to sustain the budget does very much depend upon economic growth in the community, as well as the city continuing to reevaluate its expenses, especially the recurring expenses, and kind of go forward in the future, knowing that it's going to be a tight budget for the next couple of years.
What do you mean it depends on economic growth? What did you mean by that?
The city of Lake Worth, like a lot of other communities, I mean, we've had such a huge a loss in property valuation, much more than any other community, which has really impacted our ability to provide these basic general services that are not specifically attached to a user fee. We're pretty confident we're seeing the bottom of that trend. So if in fact we are at the bottom as opposed to what we've seen in the last couple of years, we should be okay. I'm optimistic.
Why did the report so strongly recommend the creation of a new Lake Worth Police Department?
The report was predicated on what it would cost to have a police department that would be a number that the city would use for the purposes of planning if we were going to constitute a department. That's what that means.
And the transition money would come from where? The money for the transition would come from where?
Ultimately, through the cost reductions that you would not be incurring with the contract. But again, we've not generated a specific dollar number for the purposes of reconstituting the department. That was not the scope of the work. But it is a number that the city would have to look at if it wanted to reconstitute a department. Absolutely.
And I think it's important to note that this study was not done. A study was not done in 2008 when the contract was established. So it gives us a position of knowing where we stand in the ability to better negotiate a contract for our residents and taxpayers.
Are they typically 3-year contracts, or are they just annual contracts? How does that work? How long do the contracts last?
Which contracts?
For PBSO to
The lesson.
Typically, it's a 3 to 4 year cycle.
cycle?
It's a
Okay.
3 to 4 year cycle.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you, I don't know if you want to read the statement
Sure.
again, because I missed it.
Sure.